Waterville City budget meeting. Sarah, who we starting with? Or Steve, who we starting with? Which department?
We're starting with human resources.
All right, so we've got Bobby Joe already here.
We just had a conversation.
All right. So you can go ahead, Bobby Joe, and let us know presenting something, tell us what's changing in your budget.
Sure. So I have a rather large change in my budget, which will be a one-time change for this year. That's a $50,000 increase in my budget, which will consist of a comprehensive salary and benefits survey. The last one we did was in 2005, so it's way outdated. This would cover all positions in the city. So, moving forward with the other negotiations, all of our non-unions, this will help when we hire new staff, new department heads. So it's definitely needed. We've been wanting to do it for a few years. And I think this is the time we need to get it done. It's just way overdue. So that's the largest increase in my budget. For the most part, everything else is pretty stable. I do have some additional money in my budget for salary adjustments, which would take care of any merit increases that Steve wanted to provide for non-union employees, hiring new department heads if we had to do that. There is one decrease in my budget, which is a $5,000 decrease, and that is in the anticipated retirements this year. Last year, I had two large retirements. That was Mike Roy as city manager and Mark Turner as the public works director. So I had to budget a lot more last year for retirements. What we do is we pay out vacation time. We don't pay any sick time out. So this year I just don't have those large retirements. So those are the majority of the changes in my budget this year. Everything else is pretty static, same as last year.
Anybody have a question? Klepak.
Hey, Bobby Joe.
Yeah.
So who conducts the comprehensive salary and benefit survey? Is that you, or who does that?
No, we'll put out an RFP and have an independent company do that. That's what we did last time. And, we ended up with a very thorough book that we got that had pay scales. They reviewed our job descriptions to make sure we were compliant. So yeah, we'll put that out there for another company to do it.
Let's see.
Claude, go ahead.
And after the end of that survey, do we have to do a bunch of raises, changing job descriptions and stuff? In other words, were there substantial changes as a result of that?
We redid all of our job descriptions. They were all different formatting the last time. They were piecemealed. So now all of our job descriptions are formatted the same way. So I don't see a lot of changes to our job descriptions. Non-union staff do not have pay scales right now. So, we get COLA. There's when we hire somebody new, it's kind of hard not knowing where we should be putting somebody on for starting pay. So that's really what we're looking at. Moving forward with the unions, this will help us to know where we're at. If we need to be bumping up, public works, our laborers, or our finance clerks, that's really what will be helpful. So there could be changes in the next year. I don't see anything changing this year. By the time it got done, there wouldn't be anything in this fiscal year that would be done. But it could change stuff in the future. It really just depends on how we land with our other communities and organizations.
This will be a benchmarking effort so that we, like she said, so we know where we stand and we have context to work with.
And the exact timing of it, that study will be conducted? Like you put an RFP out that we'd approve somebody by the fall or something, and then the next 6 months that survey would be conducted. So about a little bit, maybe like this time next year or something.
Yeah, I'd like to have it done well before budget season, if we could. If we can get somebody on board early enough. That way, when we prepare next year's budget, we have those figures and we're ready to go. Plus, we usually start negotiating contracts in March. We're a little later, starting with the police department this year. So again, I'd like to have that information ready to go for the union contracts that are up next year too. So I'm thinking if this gets approved and when the budget's approved, I'm gonna put it out to my HR group and find out who they've used and get the RFP going as soon as Steve gives me the go ahead.
Anybody else? Oh, go ahead, Claude.
But basically, this is just a way to modernize the way we treat the city's workforce, the non-union workforce in particular. The union workforce, they come in with everything all already arranged. They already know what the steps and stuff should be. But getting the city stabilized in terms of its workforce, that's the main goal?
Yes, absolutely.
Any other questions from? Oh, go ahead.
What's the breakdown between unionized and non-unionized city employees?
Trying to think off the top of my head. There's
Probably about 75-25.
yeah, I'd say that's probably very accurate. It's the
25 not.
dispatchers and a few support staff like the IT staff, myself, department heads, other department heads. Those are the non-union.
Yeah, it could even be 80-20.
Yeah.
Almost everybody we have is unionized.
Correct.
So, question, I'm sorry, what is the cost of this again?
I put in the budget for 50,000. When I was putting my budget together, I asked the HR group, hey, give me a ballpark of anybody that's done this recently. Some people got this done for 30,000. Some people got this done for 80,000. So I kind of averaged and we'll see what we come up with. That was the best. That was where kind of most of them were at, was 50 to 60,000. So that's where we came up with the 50,000 to put in the budget.
And this does this at the end of this, we get updated job descriptions, or like, what do we, like, I'm just like, we're going to spend 50,000, well, 30 to 80,000. I mean, we're budgeting, we're in the middle to review an estimated 20% of the people that work in the city.
No, we're going to review everybody, even the union positions.
Okay.
That will give us that benchmark when we negotiate contracts. So we might find that our laborers at Public Works are well below other laborers in other municipalities. We might find out that our clerks are well below. So it's going to encompass all employees, not just the non-union. But
in the review of the job descriptions is going to bring them to a point where they reflect what the employees are actually doing.
yeah, we look at them. Department heads look at our staff ones, but this is a piece where we have somebody independently looking at it, and they might see something that's kind of outdated or needs to get us back into compliance. There might be something that's just missing there. What we got last time and what I would like this time is we got a manual, and what it said is when you get a new person coming in a new position, you go through checks 1, 2, 3 all the way down to 10, and you rate what this position does for these benchmarks, and that kind of gives you a way to figure out where they should fall in the pay groups.
Klepak?
So you said the last one was conducted in 2005. Is that right?
Correct. Yes.
When was the one previous to that conducted?
I
What?
think I've done one. So I've been in the department since 97. So I don't know that we've had a company do one before that, but I could be wrong. There could be one out there that I'm not aware of, but
And you said you conducted one in like 97, 98, something like that?
that's when I started in the department. And I don't remember doing one until 2005. We used to do our own, like HR used to, when we had 3 people in HR, we used to contact the other communities and do them on our own. I'm the only one left in HR, so it's incredibly time consuming to do that.
I was just trying to get a sense of what the periodicity is and how badly out of whack we are.
Yeah, we're out of whack. Definitely. We had scales up until 2005 for non-union, so that was part of it. Is we revamped from there. So
Go ahead, Morris.
Well, I mean, like you just raised a question when you said we had HR, we had 3 people. I mean, if we're going to take 50, if we're budgeting for 50 grand, is this somebody that we can hire on? And this is like they do this for a period of time and like maybe part-time and maybe look to move this position, and start increasing, the city staff to, reduce workloads across everybody. Like, would that be money better served than hiring an organization to come in here for 3 months, evaluate our city versus we hire someone with the guise of that, okay, well, your first role is let's go ahead and revamp this system. And, we just go forward from there.
I wouldn't do that. I think we need the outside opinion to look at what we're doing and to set us straight where we're not. If we brought a person in, we'd have to bring them in somewhat of an entry level capacity, and we're not going to get that level of expertise to be able to do the work that we need done.
Bobby Joe, if you were to do this study, would they come back to us, or give you information that says you should probably have one more person in your department? Is that within their purview, or are they strictly looking at the jobs that we currently have? Because I agree with Mike. I think that if you're the only one doing HR and we have all of these employees and you're bound to doing other stuff, then you've obviously got to be stretched somewhat thin. And having a organization come in and do an evaluation like this will help us not blindly try to figure out how we're going to catch everybody up. I mean, we just had this conversation a little while ago where we were talking about percentages. So, I mean, it sort of gets us on that path to know where what's the starting salary for a police officer everywhere. We'd have that information.
I don't believe in the last survey that we did that they talked about staffing levels, but I haven't read that survey in a long time. It may be something that they could include, looking at what our staffing levels are compared, looking at our community size.
I think that would be important for us to know. And I think that we should try to look to include that in anybody that you hire, because I think that information is important as we go down the road, as we start paving the future, for things. What do we think we need versus what does, an independent person say we need? And I think that would be pretty eye-opening. I think, if I hear it one thing over and over again, and if I had a dime for every time I heard it, I could fund one of these positions, is that, across all departments, we are understaffed and overworked, and like that only goes for so long, and before people start, just burning out and, calling out sick when they don't have to call out sick, but they get the sick time because they just don't want to deal with it. And I don't blame them, but like we got to start to work. If we're going to start looking at all these other things, like the infrastructure, we got to worry about the infrastructure of our people too, and start moving in that direction. So yeah, like any place that you go, like if we could get that would be ideal. You know what I mean?
Well, and I think we also made it clear when we were putting this budget together. I mean, Steve told the department heads to tell him what they need.
Right.
Whether it actually happens or not, but and we need to listen to, Bobby Joe can probably tell us the needs in her department more than some outside consultant can, frankly. And so at some point we need to listen to our employees about what the needs are and have a serious discussion.
Agreed.
So, Bobby Joe, there, in this budget, we are adding employees to the city roles. What kind of additional burden is this budget, the staffing calls for in this budget going to put on your department?
Honestly, a lot of my stuff for HR is automated. I've been doing the 2 jobs since 2006, so I've streamlined HR significantly. So adding 7-10 positions doesn't add a lot of workload. I was doing it before all the positions were cut back in 2005 by myself. So, and that was when we had to do everything by paper. Everything is scanned. We're very electronic now. So I don't think it's going to add any more work to my. It's just an extra meeting when they start. That's really the change.
Bobby Joe, that was your opening. I mean, that was
Well, I'm being honest. I'm being honest. Like, I've gotten used to doing it. So Steve and I've had this conversation. We did have this conversation, and I've told him if I get to that point where I'm going to break, I'll tell him.
Well, it might be too late then. That's what I'm saying.
Well, no, before I break, I'll tell him. Like I said, things are very streamlined in my department because I don't do payroll. I don't know if people realize I don't do the payroll. If I did payroll, I could not do this by myself. That's done in a different department. So I just do the new hire and then their benefits. So
you're telling us that you're going to come to us when you think you need assistance?
Yeah, I will. If I need assistance, I will tell you. I have no problem asking for that. I will go to Steve and say, listen, we've now added 15 people. Now this is getting to the point where I need to go back to full-time HR. Because I do part-time Parks and Rec. I make it work, and I'm okay with making it work. I would tell you if I wasn't. After doing it for this many years, I would definitely tell you if I couldn't do both.
Is the city suffering from you not having one task? Like, for you not to be focused solely on HR? Maybe the position that's needed is at Parks and Rec, not at HR.
That I don't want to say the city is suffering based on my job. I hope I'm not making this.
No. Suffering's the wrong word. Meaning,
okay.
Like, could you be more productive if you didn't have to do Parks and Rec also?
Oh, that's kind of a...
Don't answer that.
Well, that's a good question. So if I didn't have to do 25, 30% of my job, would I be productive at the other 80%? Like, of course you would. like
No pressure, Bobby Joe. No pressure.
Yeah.
No, it's not fair to put
Right, exactly.
somebody
That's
in the
right.
spotlight like that.
Not fair.
You really. My worry is that this study is going to show that Wonder Woman needs to be paid twice what she's been being paid, and that blows up the entire budget next year.
That's not my plan.
In the meantime, I think it's one of those things that we need to do. We need some outside people to come in and tell us that the structure of our city needs to be adjusted for the 21st century. So I think this is an excellent idea, and they're going to come back after the RFP with a number for us to approve. So I think this is one of those things we just need to go keep the city moving ahead.
I can tell you, even large communities like Portland that have several people in their HR departments go to outside consultants for this work. So even when they have an assistant HR director, they go outside to get this done. So
I think most of us have been sold on the fact that we need I want an independent voice to tell us what's going on. One of my biggest concerns in the city is burnout. And I think that you do a fantastic job. I think lots of our employees do fantastic jobs. I am always concerned with the amount of work that we have put on you over the years. And we're not looking for our employees to get burnt out. We want you to enjoy what you're doing, not be overly stressed while you're doing it. Because when you're not stressed, you're doing a much better, you guys, you're doing a good job. That's how it goes. So burnout is a thing that I'm always concerned with. It's almost every department we have faces the same sort of challenge. And if you guys aren't letting us know, then we really can't do anything without that information.
Would Bobby Joe, would these reports that other towns have done be public documents? And also, I'm sort of surprised Maine Municipal doesn't maintain some sort of statistics on this stuff. Like, it seems foolish to have every municipality go out and do a study on its own. That's just going to produce the same information for every municipality.
So Maine Municipal does do a salary survey, and it's what they do is they send it out to all the communities and say, hey, put your information in here. It's only those that decide to put their information in there that you get information back. But what you can't do with that is compare job descriptions. So you can't look at it just puts a title in there. So, we have positions that do share here. There's nothing that compares to what I do with my job. There's nothing that compares to some of these new positions that we're looking at. So some of the HR places will share their salary surveys, like the full thing. Some of them will just give you the wage scale. They won't give you all the backup. So I don't know if it's how they did their RFPs that I can always ask. There's definitely no problem with that. It's also depending on where they're located. If we look at a Portland area, their community is going to have different survey groups than what we would for community. So
have any of the surrounding communities done this recently, and would it be worth teaming up with somebody on this sort of thing?
It might be. I can check. I'm not aware of any in this area that have done it recently with a consultant, but I can throw it out to my HR groups and see who has done it, who's looking to do it, and see if anybody's willing to maybe partner up and do it. I can definitely throw that out to them.
Councilor Foss.
Bobby Joe, at the end of it, I've worked for several different companies. One in particular, back years ago, we were paid lower than industry standard. Am I correct in saying that at the end of all this, you've spent the money and you've gotten the reports, you're going to have industry standard numbers to go by?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh,
and those are traditionally a better reference than, say, Bath gave theirs, or Augusta gave theirs. As an average across the industry, you as Bobby Joe HR typically get paid this amount across the board as an average.
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead. You're good.
Yeah. So what we did the last time is we sat with the consultant and we went through the municipalities in the state. So we picked a population size. Then we did pick some of the local communities as well. So even though Winslow is not the same population size, we took them on as one of the communities that we surveyed. They also surveyed businesses. So it's not just municipalities. Like for our finance people, they went to banks. So that's another piece that I don't get. I can't go to a private sector and try to get their wages. So
right, fiber optics guys don't work for just a municipality. They don't work for just a telecom. They don't work for just a cable company. It's all encompassing. I've got a certificate here for fiber optics. I can take it anywhere and get a varying degree of pay depending on where I would land. But what you're going to get from this is an industry average standard.
Right. And that-
not dependent on municipality versus bank versus blah, 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 blah. So, okay.
Well, and we should be prepared because I can tell you what this isn't going to find. It's not going to find that we're overpaying our employees.
No, I can tell you that right now. My job, industry standard was being paid to me $10 under industry average per hour, $10 per hour under.
Ouch.
Yeah,
That's why you're in a new industry now?
you got it.
Well, let's hope that we're not paying anybody $10 an hour less than what they're supposed to be getting,
Agreed.
because that would be just awful.
Yeah,
That would be horrible. You are correct.
I wouldn't even have a problem with that.
Except for city councilors, they are way overpaid.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
You know, back in the day when these surveys were done and these analyses were done, it was done just across the municipal arena. And the assumption was that municipalities were competing with each other for staff. But as Rick points out now, we're competing with other industries for people who are qualified to do the things we need and that they need. So we do need to do the benchmarking.
All right. Anybody else have questions for Bobby Joe before we let it go?
Thank you, Bobby Joe.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Good night.
Thanks, you too.
Your professionalism, Bobby Joe. Thank you.
All right. Who do we got next, Steve?
It's going to be Matt Skane.
All right. Let's go, Matt.
What page is he on in the budget here? Does anyone have that?
No, I had Aaron pulled up.
Yeah. Hold on.
They're in alphabetical order, I believe.
Oh, I got it. Page 61.
Yeah. You got it. 51, yeah.
Hey, Matt.
We
Matt's
start
on
with
mute.
Public Works
Yeah.
or Parks and Rec.
Oh, good call. Yeah.
I thought we'd start with Public Works, but it's up to you guys.
Go ahead.
Okay.
Your floor.
Yeah, I hope yep. How's everyone doing? Thanks for having me. I hope the budget memo was helpful. The Public Works Department is a big department. We've got 25 full-time staff, full-time equivalents, accounting for about 57% of the operating budget. And we take care of a lot. It's in the memo. You know, it's winter maintenance, facility maintenance, trash and recycling, street painting, traffic lights, signals, our mechanics, over 20 miles of sidewalks and 350 lane miles of road. So we've got a great staff. We're very busy. And I appreciate the discussion that you guys just had about the kind of the benchmarking for where departments should be, because I do think we're thin. So, I guess I'll just open it up to questions, you guys. The budget's gone up a little bit. My salary and benefits from Parks and Rec has moved over entirely to Public Works, leaving nothing in the admin budget for Parks. So that's a large part of the increase. Other than that, we're pretty much flatlining. The other increases would be step increases for the 25 full-time staff. So that does account for a fair amount of the increases for the overall Public Works budget.
Matt, I just because I didn't see it here in front of me, can you tell me how many new positions, if any, that you're looking for this year?
Well, yeah. I mean, we could use probably one full-time individual on the Public Works side, one full-time on the Park side, and we could especially use someone new and fresh in the office to help me with the administrative tasks.
Now,
So
sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but when you
No.
presented those positions, did you do so thinking that those are the only positions that you were going to get? And do you feel like even if you add those positions, will you be deficient?
Well, I didn't present them formally, Mayor. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Just understanding other departments were, I guess they were ahead and they were getting their staff this year, which is fine. We can make do with what we have. very anxious, looking forward to next year already, and a recognition from you all that we are thin and that we do need help. So yeah, I didn't present that formally. But yeah, with increases, 1 or 2 on the public works side, 1 on the park side, and 1 in the office, I think I believe would be in great shape.
Okay, thank you for that. I'm just trying to get some of the ballparks of what departments are thinking about what they wanted. Go ahead, Claude.
Oh, would you talk a little bit about the administration, how that's working with you running both departments? Have there been some bumps in the road, or is that putting an awful lot of stress on you? They're both pretty good sized departments. It seems to me that we're asking you to be Matt Skinn and Mark Turner at the same time.
Well, there certainly have been bumps in the road, Counselor. But what was helpful is that I was in the same office with Mark for 14 years, so I did have a pretty decent understanding of the operation and the personnel. So I'm coming up on about a year doing both jobs, and there's no place I'd rather be. No question about it. The energy and the growth in our city is just amazing. But yeah, there's definitely the stressors would be that we're just not able, or I'm not as able to be as, I guess, as efficient and as professional as I can be, because it's phone calls and emails. Man, it's just, it's really hard to keep up with. So I guess that would be, the hardest thing, Counselor Frankie, is just being attentive to people's complaints or needs, and it's really on both sides. The variety and the diversity of phone calls and emails I get are just it's all across the board when you consider both departments. I'm not crying though. I really do enjoy it, but we could certainly we could use some help. And Bobby Joe, she is Superwoman, or someone referred to her as that. She is she's one of the hardest working people I know. We're so lucky to have her doing the parks and the human resources side. It's a lot for her too. But.
Councillor Klepat.
Hey Matt, I actually share Claude's concern, and it's not necessarily that you are or are not able to dispatch both jobs, but it's that how does that set the city structure up long term? Having, we have you are Superman, right? You're able to do all these things. It's driving you a little crazy trying to keep up with the emails and the having to switch gears between the diversity as you talk about, but you're managing it. You love it. The city certainly is vibrant right now. Long term, what is that structure? What is the sustainability of the structure, having those two departments so intimately unified under a single person? And how does that, because the thing that's in the back of my head is I would like to see Parks and Rec grow. Personally, Parks and Rec, in my mind, is the key, one of the important keys to the future of Waterville here. Having your time so finely parsed between all of your responsibilities right now, for however long you're able to maintain that, how is that setting us up for the future of the Parks Department? Nick, could you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, well, I'm afraid that it doesn't really set things up very well for the Parks Department, Tom. And like you say, the Parks Department is robust. It is growing and moving with so many different parts and great infrastructure coming into place. But really, the Public Works and Parks and Recreation being under one director, I think it makes a lot of sense because of the tasks and the duties that are involved. It can be very efficient, because we have a lot of manpower and we have a lot of equipment that we share, and that we don't necessarily, we prioritize, we get things done that need to be done. But it doesn't, I guess, yeah, in a nutshell, I hope that answers your question. It really, it makes it difficult for the Parks Department to grow and to, begin new programs and to really take care of our existing infrastructure the way that I'd like to.
Yeah, because one of the things that I look at in this budget that I'm concerned, I actually had a couple questions, specific questions. So one of the things I see that we're going down by about $7,000 in terms of programming for the Parks Department over this past year, and I was wondering why that was. And then the other thing was, what was the fiscal year 2020 pool budget, so that I can get a number to compare to what you're proposing?
Okay, it's going to be tricky if we bounce back and forth between Parks and Public Works. If we could, if that's okay.
I'm sorry,
if we can stick with Public Works, and then I'll put my Public Works stuff aside, and then I'll grab my Park stuff.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay.
Go ahead, Councilor Thomas.
Well, I mean, this sort of covers both, but I mean, I do think there's an opportunity there with another person focused more on the Parks and Rec side. There might be an opportunity to generate more income, like specifically at the pool. We had a lot of ideas around that, and I know Matt doesn't really have the time to implement all of the ways that we might generate more revenue over at the pool. So I think there's an opportunity there where a position might partly pay for itself. And then something else that's not in this budget yet, but Matt and I have talked a lot about, and I've talked to a couple of counselors about, we continue to try to sort of wean people off of the city trash service. And one of the things we're working on is a proposal from a private company that does curbside composting pickup. And I think I'm going to be bringing a proposal forward in a couple of weeks to basically subsidize getting them off the ground in Waterville, to get the food waste out of the waste stream. It would be a paid service that people would have to pay for. It would involve a minimal one-time expense for the city. Hopefully it would continue to lighten the load on the people doing the trash pickup so that we could move towards a 4-day pickup, which might free them up on that 5th day to do some of the other things that maybe we're falling short on at Public Works. And then of course, we're also talking about getting a lot more proactive about dealing with paving and sidewalks, and that's going to create a lot more work. And I know we're some of that we're going to put on outside services, but in the end, I think it's still going to create more work for Matt, one way or another. So, I think those are all conversations we need to have. Matt, there was a position, I forget where this ended up. Wasn't there supposed to be a shared position for Parks and Rec, Public Works?
Yep. And we hired that person in January, Counselor, and that's been working out great.
And what exactly is that person doing?
Mostly parks this time of year, but during the winter time, help with winter maintenance and shoveling and plowing. Yeah.
And then I know we've had this conversation. We hire seasonal employees for Parks and Rec, but we really haven't done that for Public Works in the past. Is that something we should look at? To be honest, it's not a bad idea, but we're in decent shape on the Public Works side with the 25 full-time folks. Well, there's aside from the mechanics, there's probably 20, but it's just my first summer, but we've got enough manpower and equipment to get done the things that I think need to get done. I don't think we need to go down that road with seasonals on the Public Works side. Well, or would it help, like, for example, downtown snow removal? If we contracted just that part out, would it help with you guys getting the snow removal done in a more timely fashion? Or are there parts and pieces of that we could possibly talk about outside contractors for to do things more efficiently without adding new employees?
Certainly. Yeah, I mean, we had discussed a little bit last year about maybe subbing out a portion of our sidewalk, and I think that's a nice one that could really kind of free things up to get things done more efficiently or quickly in the downtown area.
It's a novel idea. If it's in front of your business, shovel it. I mean, I do. I shovel my own. Clepat.
So along the lines of what Eric was talking about, one thing that I think is important in the city is not just shoveling the roads, but also the sidewalks, because particularly on the south end, there's a significant number of people that walk to work or walk to get their groceries, etc. What would it take to facilitate that? To maybe improve the time course of that?
Well, we did, as part of the last bond, we did just recently purchase a third sidewalk tractor. And with this shared position, Counselor, I think that'll give us 3 sidewalk tractors and 3 men after each storm, which should help address that for sure. I can't say, it's just every storm is different. If it's heavy and wet, if it freezes, it takes a lot longer to get done. But it's very important to myself that, sidewalks do get done as quickly as possible. So that will help. The new equipment, the bond, and that was one thing I wanted to touch on, that the equipment that we have now is really making things much easier and more efficient for us. Our trucks, our tractors, it's just been great. We've made out very well over the last few years, thankfully.
So I just want to point out before I go to Claude that when Eric was talking about the food waste program and that it would have a cost, that cost is optional, not like the purple bags. It is optional to sign up for that service. It won't be mandatory for any of our residents. It'll help them with their trash. I mean, to be honest, what is it? 60% of food waste goes in the gutter, in the trash. I mean, that's, if people use that service, that'd be 30 to 60% less trash, less tipping fees, and everything all around. Claude?
I have 2 questions. First of all, would you explain why the street lights now need maintenance? I thought we switched to LEDs, what the maintenance is. And secondly, I've had a constituent who's worried about the apparel that the city workers wear. According to the constituent, it doesn't seem like they're protected enough from the weather. I know you've got a line in there for apparel. Would you speak to those 2 issues?
Yeah, well, first, the streetlights, if you're referring to the $10,000 this year that wasn't there before, our contract with, it's not coming to me right now. It was a 2-year limited warranty on equipment, and we just really thought that we've got to have something in there, Counselor, for when things do start to break down. We have had quite a few issues with the LED lights. While our savings are fantastic from CMP, the fuse boxes are getting wet, so those things have all been covered, and that is going to expire, I believe, in the fall. So really, we grabbed a number and we threw it in there just to have moving forward. We'll learn more after the warranty expires on what it will really cost us to maintain the street lights.
Well, and before CMP owned the lights, right, Matt? I mean, that was part of what we did.
Right.
So, and I assume they were responsible for some of that maintenance that
they were
before, right?
Yeah. So, and I'm sorry to hear, about your constituent and the, I've got to assume it's someone that wasn't dressed appropriately in the wintertime. Yeah.
Well, actually, it was rain gear that they were worried about and gloves.
Right. We do have line items in there, and we do have the apparel in lockers and in cases and bags, and sometimes they choose not to use it. But that we don't want people going out there getting wet and getting cold. So I guess that's something that I can be more mindful of, and with my operations and maintenance supervisor, to make sure that these guys are dressed appropriately, even if they think they are. If they're going out there and we know what the conditions are, we can do a better job encouraging them or reminding them that we have the gear to keep them dry.
Good, thank you.
Anyone else got questions for Matt?
I do.
Go ahead.
So, one of the first things that I got to have a discussion about as a city councilor was the winter parking ban back in November. And when we decided to re-implement the old ordinance, at that time we said, well, let's figure out a solution, see if there are other solutions to that problem. In some municipalities, they have a thing where the lights can alternate colors to tell, not profoundly, but just enough that it's a signal to the residents that they need to get their cars off the road. Have we made any progress? Is there any progress? Are there any solutions to that? What might be some solutions to that problem? Or now that the winter has passed, maybe it was a concern that we didn't need to have. Maybe a lot of people.
How many complaints did we get? How many complaints?
Well, we know the winter was very mild, so I'm not complaining. We did have some small, a handful of small storms, but we really didn't have that big storm. Complaints, I guess, were kind of on the medium level after the first few storms, but after that, the folks in the South End, which was one of the areas we were most concerned with, the South End Neighborhood Association and KB Cap got the word out for the ancillary parking at Kuchar Field and at the boat landing. And I'll be honest, I think things worked pretty well. I know that everyone wasn't happy with it, but it just makes things so much safer and more efficient for us to have those cars off the road. Also, the flashing lights or beacons, if you will, in the concourse, I think were pretty well received. I'd like to do a better job in this off season with delineating the Hedda Falls parking area because a lot of Colby students park down there and they leave their cars down there for weeks. So kind of brainstorming with some of the public works crew about things that we can do down there to make that more efficient. Because there is a fair amount of parking down there that can't be used because cars are just left there all winter long.
Yeah,
we can't clean up.
Yeah, we need to get Colby to build a parking structure over there in Appleton.
We're gonna get you to start that conversation, Tom.
Right.
I don't have sway. Not magic.
No. We're not talking about sway. We're talking just in general. We're gonna get you to start having that conversation with us.
You just did.
Yep. Anything else on the public works side before we move to Parks and Rec? All right, Matt, put on your Parks and Rec hat.
Yeah. Okay. Again, I think we broke things down fairly clearly in the budget memo. Not a lot of increases. Again, my salary and benefits have moved over to public works, so you won't see that. Total expenses this year, we're calling for about $685,000 with revenues at $238, so a total of about $450,000. And Parks is robust. I hope that you all saw the facility and trail listing along with programs and events. There's probably facilities on there maybe that you weren't familiar with. There's a lot of little ones, and of course there are the bigger ones. I always include now the cemetery as part of the parks budget, just because the nature of the work that we're doing there is so, similar to what we're doing on the park maintenance side. So yeah, I'm just looking through things. I could definitely get to Councilor Klepak's questions in just a minute. So, we've got the pool, that's a big one. We've got the Quarry Road Recreation Area. And I think it's always important for folks to understand that our full-time program director out there is funded by grants for both salary and benefits, 100% reimbursable by the Friends of Quarry Road. So that's not an added expense for us. And I do think Quarry Road is a real positive economic impact driver that is just beginning to crest. So I'm very proud of everything that Justin is doing out at Quarry Road. And as I mentioned before, Pine Grove Cemetery and the programs. I've said it each time I've done my budget on the park side. I think we offer a lot of bang for the buck. The guys are super busy. They're passionate. They care about the areas that maintain. We also mow all school property. And and we groom all our ball fields, we paint all our soccer fields. The pool was a bear up until hopefully this year, where maintenance, the time and money it costs to run that facility will go way down. So I'm looking forward to start up there, and understanding that it won't take our crew a month to get the old facility ready. It should take just a few days. And as Councillor Thomas mentioned before, there is this facility at the pool in particular it's second to none. It is going to be, there's a ton of potential there. And he's right when he says that we did investigate different revenue streams, but we did implement the advertising, at the outdoor pool, and that's going pretty well. We've sold 5 banners for this year, but there are other ones like lockers and cabanas and swim meets. And between Bobby Joe and I, there's so many logistics involved, and maybe after COVID and after we learn this new pool, we can slowly piece things together, but there's a ton of potential for increased revenue at the outdoor pool. For Central Maine, it's a pretty special place. So Councillor Klepak, can you remind me, you mentioned something about, I'm sorry, maybe I'm bouncing around, but I'm happy to take any questions about parks, but program expenses going down?
Yeah, well, just trying to make sense of the numbers. Yeah, it looks like your program dollars went down by $7,000, and then I was wondering what so where did you get 137 for the pool? Given, because you just told us the story about how it's going to be more efficient. What was the 2020 cost? That number's not in here.
Okay, hold on. It might take me just the 2020 cost
was zeroed out. I was just
The pool.
Right. We didn't open the pool last year, right?
No, I understand that.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, round numbers, Counselor, the pool, with the old pool, expenses between the utilities, chemicals, and staff were right around $100,000.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then as far as programs go, we're doing less because we don't have the staff to operate them, which is unfortunate because there's potential revenue that we're missing out on. We also used to do more events, and that we're not doing anymore. Festivals and events that obviously you're not going to see the expense, and there weren't associated revenue, so that one's okay.
Councillor Frankie.
Well, speaking of revenues, here I know we've got some people on the call who are very interested in increasing revenues for the city. But I'm going to suggest that for the pool, and I know we voted last year to approve the new fee schedule, but I'm going to suggest that this year, since we're coming off of COVID, and going to the pool is going to be one of the first things that a lot of people do that means it's life back to normal. I'm going to suggest that instead of raising the fees for the pool this year, we maintain them as to what they were in 2019 and give the residents a break and a welcome back to life as normal.
Claude, it's going to sound weird because I'm always like a Waterville first. What if it was only Waterville residents and then you still went up on your fee structure for out of town?
Oh, all I'm saying, Jay, is the whole community, not just Waterville, everybody in the area has been suffering through COVID. Let's welcome back. Let's welcome folks back and say, look, this is one thing that hasn't changed. Let's get back to life as normal.
And one other question, Matt, for you before I'll let you go, Eric, after this. What is the benefit of having the two departments separate instead of one department, since you're running them both anyway?
I'm sorry. So what are the advantages of having them separate?
Yeah. What are the advantages of having the two departments separate versus one much larger department?
Yeah, more attention, more care to the finer details, I guess, especially on, well, no, not especially on either side, but just missing the little things, Mayor. It's just, I guess that would be it. You know, I mean, not being able to look at the big picture, but being right down in the weeds all the time.
I was just hopeful that you'd be able to. You always talk about staffing. It'd be nice to be able to like sort of push those employees from one side to the other based on whatever your need is in that moment.
Right.
And whether that means making one full department, you being a department head, and then having somebody who you can delegate a section like parks to, and then sort of you're still there at the top making sure that everything's getting. I'm just thinking about moving pieces back and forth for you, so to make it seamless, because they're two different unions, aren't they? It's like
no, they're the same union, and we're doing that. We do that often, weekly, where I'll grab a couple guys from the public works side and move them over to the park side, and vice versa. We don't have as many to spare on the park side, but I feel well within my, my authority. I just want to
make sure that you have that flexibility
to do that.
Those guys
absolutely,
guys and girls around. Okay.
Absolutely. Yep. And that's why what I was getting at before with the efficiencies, where I don't have to ask permission of another director to borrow their equipment or borrow their, we'll set the priorities. We know what we're doing each day and each week. And I'll grab the folks that we need to get the jobs done that need to be done on either side.
And again, I know you heard me say it, Bobby Joe, my biggest concern when it comes to our city department heads and employees is burnout. It's the last thing that we want. Happy employees make good decisions. They do good work. So I just want to make sure that you're getting the things that you need. Rick?
You had Councilor Thomas first.
I'm sorry, Eric, go ahead.
I was just going to say, in terms of the pool, I'd have to hear what what that means money-wise. Because I mean, another part of what we need to be putting money aside for the pool for future maintenance. That's part of the agreement we made with the Alphon Foundation. And then, it is a brand new facility, including the water slide, which barely got used the first year that it was installed because it was so late in the season. So this is really going to be the first season where the slide's available and the brand new pool. And, I'm all for doing things for Waterville residents, but we also have to be fiscally responsible.
How much money are we talking about? Like what Claude is proposing, how many projected users are there going to be this summer, Matt?
Well, we see between 25 and 30,000 visitors a year at the pool. I'd have to, this kind of, while I think it's a kind gesture and it's an interesting suggestion, I'd have to kind of break out. I wasn't prepared to break out the numbers for that.
Well, I mean, we have tuition programs for people who can't afford it, right, Matt?
Correct. Scholarships, yes, for Waterville residents only. Yep.
Sorry, Matt. I was going to try to get that suggestion to you earlier last week, but I got busy doing a whole bunch of other stuff. My apologies.
Yeah, well, no worries. It's really up to it's up to you folks how we move forward. If you want specifics on how that would look, we do have all the statistics that we need to go back to 19 to determine how many Waterville resident season passes, individual passes we sell versus out of town, what that looks like, or if it were to be just straight up same rates as would be the summer of 19. I can share that with you.
If you had to go that way, Matt, I mean, do you like your budget the way you have it right now for the pool?
Yeah, I do. I mean, I feel a little bit of pressure to start making some serious revenues with some of these special facilities that we have. So while I would be proud of the potential revenues that we could, put back into the general fund, I was a little caught off guard. I think it's an interesting suggestion that we could consider.
Okay.
Well,
good. So at least you're amenable. I mean, that's the important part. Go ahead, Eric.
Well, one of the things we talked about out there is the concessions. That could be something that we contract out to somebody instead of trying to do ourselves, and we may be able to make more money that way. When we were looking at the pool, we asked Matt to put together really, really a business plan for the pool. And I think there's things there that could be done if there was somebody, and perhaps we need to find somebody else within the city to, assign that task to, or I don't know what. Or maybe it's something we can work more closely with the Alphon Youth Center on, because we already work with them on managing a pool right now.
Right.
So I don't know, maybe they have somebody there who could take on that task, but I think there's an opportunity out there. You know, this is what there's not another facility like that around here. I mean, where else are you going to go? The closest comparable thing would be a facility after, you know, something like Funtown. And, you know, we're not quite on that scale, but there's certainly no other municipal facility like this anywhere near us in central Maine. And, you know, we should be maximizing our revenues out there. I mean, I don't want to take advantage of city residents, but I also don't want taxpayers subsidizing this facility for people from out of town either.
I don't want our citizens to subsidize anyone from out of town, period. Rick Foss.
I halfway second Claude's idea about Waterville residents. If Matt can get us the information so that we can do a compare and contrast on that, as long as it's not going to take like 3 years to get those numbers together. And I mean that jokingly.
No, I'm anxious to do that.
You know, I don't want to spend a lot. I don't want to spend a lot of your time. I know you're stretched thin. So if you can quickly throw those numbers together for us and get them out to us, just so we have something to look at. Okay. It doesn't mean we're going to do it. Doesn't mean we're not going to do it. It just means that we're going to look at it, you know, to have eyes wide open.
Got to have the information.
The pool bonds, I think of last year, if I and correct me, somebody if I'm wrong, but last year we did the pool bond. During that, we had talked about and implemented the committee, I guess the Friends of the Pool committee with Amy St. Peter. How's that relationship between yourself, Public Works, Parks, going with that committee?
Well, we met just once, Counselor, and while I think it was a positive meeting, I think there are a lot more meetings moving forward where if there's energy and enthusiasm amongst that group, I'd like to consider making it into a Friends of North Street recreation area, not just the outdoor pool, because the potential up there with the new ice arena coming, the playground, the boat landing, the soccer fields. Anyways, the pandemic hasn't helped any of this. We had a great meeting on Zoom a couple weeks ago with Councilor Morris and Councilor Oliveira. Mostly sharing what our backup plans were to address COVID, and thankfully, hopefully that's gone away. So groups like that are important, and we haven't met. We've just met the one time.
Okay, good enough. Thank you.
Anyone else got questions for Matt before we move on?
I have one other thing, Mayor.
Okay, go ahead.
You know, in the memo that went out late last week from Steve, would like for you folks to consider, you know, a reserve account for lease revenue at Pine Ridge Golf to go into a reserve account to help fund future capital projects for that facility. It's deteriorating.
Isn't that only about $12,000 a year?
That's 10.
Okay.
It's 10 for 5 years. That's what we approved for his lease renewal.
All right. So it's $10,000 a year for the 12 months. All right.
I think it makes all the sense in the world. I think it makes all the sense in the world to run that similar to an enterprise, and just take the revenue that we get from it and put it right back into the facility.
That's what it is. So I agree, but I don't get a vote. You guys do. Clepat.
I don't want this to become counselors just trying to dream up stuff to ask the parks director here, but one thing that I think would significantly improve the parks in Waterville, that would be not a dramatic stretch, would be garbage cans, garbage receptacles throughout the park system. I understand that if we were to do that, people, because it's pay as you throw here in Waterville, people would be dumping their crap in those. That's just something that is a cost that I think that the city should bear. I really do think that at least at North Street, but you know, I don't want to just target one, you know, the crown jewel park in town. I feel like what would that take to get some garbage receptacles that are maintained throughout the park system.
Okay, well, I'm going to respectfully disagree. It was 10, well, what it would take would be, a new changing our policy, which is carry in, carry out for all of our playgrounds, ball fields, trails. We put it in 10 or 12 years ago, counselor, and our parks are way cleaner than they were before. I know it's hard to believe and they're not always clean, but the more trash, there's a saying for it, but the more trash cans that you have, the more trash that there is. We had problems with skunks and rats and bees and the amount of time that it took us to pick it up. It was costly. While everything is not based on cost, I get that, but it was costly and time consuming. Over the weekends at North Street, that's when things got out of control. When the garbage cans are full, what do people do with their pizza boxes and empty cake wrappers? They leave it next to the can. It's Memorial Day weekend. It's 4th of July weekend. We don't get to it for 3 or 4 days. It was a nightmare. I know it's hard and people don't like it, but I really wouldn't want to go backwards on that. I feel pretty strongly about it, but it would be a council, a change of our policy.
I appreciate your candor.
Matt, speaking of which, I know that we don't have to, I know that we have trash cans downtown on Main Street. But what is the process for residents when they see, because I'll be honest, occasionally I'll drive, I come up, go over the Abenaki Bridge here that takes me over to, from West River Road to go over to Grove. And one has to look over a railing to see that people are gross. I mean, they throw mattresses, what is the process for a resident when they see something like that to sort of get it cleaned up?
Call us and we'll go pick it up always.
Okay.
So,
good, Tom.
Along those lines, then, because I'll say one thing that I've personally wanted to spearhead at times, just like get a fleet of freaking canoes and go down to Thrushwood and run part of the Messalonsky there and pull the freaking shopping carts and rotted box springs and stuff that are like half submerged in the stream along there. Is that a similar thing where that's something that the Parks Department should be called, or how do we manage that?
No, absolutely. If it's in our town and it's trash, playgrounds and ball fields are famous for people dumping. We pick things up all the time, but if you see random things, I would definitely say call us and we'll pick it up. That's what we're here for.
Yeah.
And the other part is to get people to stop dumping their trash.
Well, that's it. It's a societal thing. And again, with the trash, Councilor Kleepak, like I said, with all due respect, people just need to be more responsible for themselves.
Well, amen to that. I've pulled probably half a dozen tires out of the stream myself over the years and brought them to the dump. But if there's a actual avenue for that, if there's a process for that, I don't want to put more work on the parks, but I am a person that's very concerned about the waterways in the town.
I'll go kayaking with you if you want to go magnet fishing.
Anytime. I caught a bunch of shad last week on Monday.
Nice. Eric Thomas.
Well, I mean, in terms of the illegal dumping, we had conversations about doing more enforcement in the places where this is a regular occurrence, putting up like game cameras or something like that, trying to catch some of these people. Because I assume in a lot of cases it's the same people over and over again. And I don't know where that went. That was sort of supposed to be a combined effort of Public Works and Police Department. And yeah, I mean, we had a lot of discussion about this back when we did pay as you throw in the first place, because people were concerned that it was going to cause more illegal dumping. And quite frankly, it was a pretty big problem before. And we never picked up bulky items really. So, this is a problem that was occurring before pay as you throw. And
I'm not even talking about garbage bags. I'm talking about bulky, weird items. I mean, there's probably, I don't know what's there now, but normally in the springtime, that alluvial stream that runs along that island that creates that island south of Hathaway there on, down the embankment of the south side. That is chronically littered with like shopping carts and all kinds of crap back there.
Yeah, and there was a spot out on County Road where people used to dump stuff all the time, which I'm sure is still occurring. If you're feeling frisky, you can go out and sort of drag everything together and then call Public Works. I've done that once or twice too. But it isn't, and this goes back to also the idea, if we could get down to 4-day trash pickup, perhaps the 5th day could be a day for them to concentrate on going around and doing that kind of work.
And I hope Councilor Thomas is wrong, because if it's the same people, they got an awful lot of beds. I don't know what they're doing. They should buy a better mattress so it'll last longer. But yeah, should the city create some sort of Groupon so like people can go and save money on bringing it to the dump or something? I don't know what the answer is, but them throwing it over the bridge and into our waterways is not a suitable. That's still going to be costing us money. I think that maybe we should look at once a year bulk collection of certain items, or give them a free day where they can go to the dump to toss that stuff. I don't know what the answer is, but they
were doing a pretty sizable cleanup in the south end every year before COVID. The last one we did, we filled up like 7 30-yard dumpsters.
I think they're looking to do that in the fall again this year.
Yeah. So, that kind of thing for sure, but it sort of ends up being a catch-22 where, people take advantage of it. But yes, like sort of staying on, giving people an outlet to get rid of that stuff. Although the people who are taking it and just throwing it wherever, I don't think there's any amount of incentive you could give them to not do that.
No, I hope they throw it out with a piece of mail so we can figure out who they are.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Sorry, Matt, we all went on a tangent there. We want a clean city. All right, if nobody else got questions for Matt, we should let him go so we can bring some. Oh, go ahead, Cleepak.
We have a pretty clean city, Matt. We have a very clean city. Your team does a great job. It's just keeping up with it. You're doing a great job.
Thank you.
We just need residents and visitors to also keep up and do their part. We're not putting it at your feet. All right. Nothing else. Who's next? Steve?
Hey.
Matt, thanks again.
Thank you guys.
Matt.
Good luck.
Thank you, Matt.
You bet.
Aaron is here with us tonight also. We're going to talk to you about debt service.
Okay.
Hi, folks.
Pardon me?
Hi, folks.
There he is.
How's it going, Aaron?
It's going well.
Did you have pizza tonight?
Nope, I had salad.
All right.
Bit of what?
Salad.
Was it a pizza salad? No.
No, I wish.
Anybody got questions for Aaron?
Yeah.
All right, Mike, go ahead.
Well, give us the landscape of the debt service. That's the thing. This is kind of like this is the lifeline. This is the thing. Like, this is what we have to monitor the most, because this can go, up relatively quickly and be like, oh yeah, we're just, bond for it. But like, this is what we talked about, almost 3 years ago. And to find that medium and so we're being consistent. So give us that, that information. Are we being consistent, and what do we have for future, growth?
And where do we find this in the budget document?
Right.
It's under, non-operating costs. Right near the front of the budget. Everybody there? The major heading on page 4.
And I mean, it's important to point out a lot of this budget is built around the idea that we're going to do a bond for this year. So if the council is not in support of a bond, it's going to change a lot of things in this budget.
That's correct. And if you look at lines 11 and 12, you're going to see the expense for issuing a bond this year, 40,000 plus 50,000. That 90,000 is built into everything that you're going to be seeing as we show you this pretty much graphical presentation. If you're ready, I want to share my screen with you.
Go ahead, Steve.
There we go. Can you see that?
Yep.
Yes, sir.
Just the opening page here. And I'm going to start with the graph that you've already seen. This chart shows you that if we use $2.5 million as a ceiling for debt service expense over an extended period of time, and you can see that's, well, from now on, it's 30 years ahead. We can issue $5 million bonds from time to time, and we've been through this in a previous discussion. All the different colored bars represent the cost of debt service throughout that period of time. Now, what we've done since then is to compute and forecast our TIF revenue over that same period of time. And using that $2.5 million maximum debt service burden, you can see that for the first 15 years from now, the TIF revenue exceeds the $2.5 million threshold. The different color areas here are the different TIFs that we have in play. And you'll note that about 15 years out, the downtown TIF ends, as well as the gas pipeline. The downtown TIF is going to be the one that makes the biggest impact on our TIF revenue at that point in time, unless, of course, that TIF is extended or renewed, depending on what the extent of downtown development has been. Moving on, this is a projection of total TIF spending over that same period of time, with the orange bar or the dark brown bar underneath representing 65% of the TIF revenue being dedicated to debt service. And the revenue is, as you see, is the green line that tops it all off. The yellow bars are those that represent the amount of TIF revenue that's applied to staffing costs having to do with economic development. These are all projected to grow over time based on a factor that we put in that's fairly nominal. I think it's 1.23%, or yeah, it's about 1.5%. And then what's remaining after we've accounted for the debt service at 65% and the staffing costs is going to other TIF funded costs. And those are related generally to support of the Growth Council and the First Park and other organizations of that nature. When we combine the two, we get this picture. And this may look a little bit busy, but it's extremely extremely informative. You recognize the chart underneath, which is the basis of this, of the potential for issuing bonded debt over that next 30 years. The green line represents the total amount of TIF revenue that we're anticipating over that period of time. The red line represents the amount of TIF revenue that would be dedicated to covering debt service at 65% of the revenues. These bars and lines are all very pliable. We can change them as we need to over time. The forecasts are pretty significantly accurate, I believe. The green line and the red line are pretty accurate. The bars, the multicolored bars underneath, representing the potential for issuing debt, those are realistically going to have to adjust to the revenue available to pay the debt service. The debt service now isn't currently being covered by strictly TIF revenues. So if we move forward, we should take into consideration the amount of tax revenue that's supporting debt service and work that into this formula. That's not in here right now. I thought it was important for us to be looking at what we could cover for debt with the TIF revenues that we're anticipating. This next slide is, pardon that. This is the picture that we see right now for use of TIF funds in this upcoming budget. And we've indicated the balance that we have in the different TIFs right now, added the revenue that we anticipate for 2022, taken out the obligations that we have for the CEA agreements. And that leaves us with an account balance in the green area. In the red outlined area, we're identifying how much we would be using of that account, those account balances. And across the board here, you're going to see how much is dedicated to debt service, to operating costs, to outside agency investments, to infrastructure investments, and then other. And at the end, once we've committed all of the money here in the red outlined area, we'll have a new balance in each one of those TIF funds as shown in the far right green block. There's some detail underneath here for the distribution of economic development agency costs. This $248,000 that you see as a total is the sum of this column, the amount of investment in outside agencies. And over here, the $287,000 here for covering the economic development related staff costs is shown in this column. And it's the $318,000 less the $30,000. The $30,000 at the top is being put into the airport staff. So that's our picture for going forward in FY 2022. And you can see that the debt service is very low by way of contribution from the TIF funds. But what that results in is having a greater balance to work with next year and perhaps the year after. One of the things that's relevant, and we don't have the different TIFs, we do have them spread out here. You can see that this small gray area here between the orange and the above the orange area, this represents the amount of income coming from the Center City TIF. And you can see that in the third year, it becomes quite substantial, even more so in the fourth year. And then it continues to grow over the next 10 or 15 years. And it will stay at that level for the duration of this, this analysis. And that's a 30-year period. So I think we're in very good shape from the standpoint of being able to fund our debt service at this $2.5 million ceiling. We're just going to have to use some of the non-TIF revenues over the next 12 years or so to make up the difference in what the TIF revenues can cover. But the TIF revenues are going to cover at least 65% of the debt service.
I have a question.
They're going to cover more than 65%. It's only 65% of the TIF revenue that in this scenario is applied to debt service. So you can see when we're out here in 2032, we're covering almost 100% of the debt service. And a couple of years after that, it is 100%. But before that, it's more in the range of 80% and climbing. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Mike.
Well, I just have a question. So, I mean, we've got a period of time here. We have from 2022 to 2035, you know, where we start to see, or 2024, we start to see this peak. And the peak is, it's a good 12 years, 14 years in which we're exceeding $500,000. Is that something that we can look to capture that revenue that we're not using, put it somewhere to, invest or so, or, whatever, to make a modest return on it. So that way, in 2036, the revenues from that money that we're collecting over those periods, that 14 years, helps offset the next 14 or 20 or whatever that is.
Are you interpreting the space between the green and the red lines as unexpended TIF revenue?
No, not the green, but the red 2.5. We exceed 2.5 is our maximum debt service.
Yeah.
Right. So we have actually no. Good point. I was only simply utilizing the red line at the 2.5 million. Given the fact that, okay, great, we're going to capture more than $2.5 million in TIF revenue.
Yeah.
From 222 to 235, right? So
yeah.
What do we? Let's put that money aside, or do things with that money that's going to offset when we get to, these other years where we do have that discrepancy. Between the red line and the green line from 2030, looks like 2035 on, we have that little break of about looks like about 500,000, maybe peaks to 600,000 in 2045 at the current trajectory. But if we can do something with this money now, that'll offset or close that gap when we're exceedingly over, and we don't really need it.
That can be the case if you decide not to cover economic development related staffing costs and the other kinds of TIF funding costs that are shown in the blue bars up here. Although I would say that these costs aren't going to increase in this fashion. This is just running a calculation out the 14 years that's shown here. But those other costs have to do with this $250,000 in infrastructure improvements right here, and the support for the outside agencies. So between those two, we've got $500,000 that exceed the debt service, which is the red line in that other graph. So it's a matter of where you choose to fund things from, and whether or not you decide to sustain the amount of outside support or the support of outside agencies, and continue with this $250,000 on paving in the district on the gas pipeline. By the way, let me comment on that. We talked about bonding this coming year for road improvements. This $250,000 under the terms of the gas pipeline TIF, the proceeds from that TIF are required to be reinvested in resurfacing the roads in that district. So that's why that's here. Although it could be dedicated to debt service, but when you dedicate it to debt service, it's making that commitment, putting that commitment into sort of a gray area. You want to be careful about that we don't get called on it.
Well, and we could update the terms of the TIF. And then, so just to make a couple of comments on things that Steve said. I mean, one, that line shows, this was why I pushed for the city center TIF, because in 15 years, the downtown TIF money goes away. And
Right.
And to be clear, we cannot extend the downtown TIF. We can start a whole new TIF when that TIF is over, but it resets the base values. So the TIF money is only on new value after when the TIF district was created.
Right.
Right.
Start all over again. What we can do though is if we see other properties downtown that are going to have significant investment over the next 5 or 10 years, we could move them into the city center TIF to extend the term on how long we capture those revenues. And I think we're going to have to stay on top of that. I mean, we almost want that TIF line to look like our debt service line where it stays constant as much as possible. I think we should also, the next conversation I want to have when we put this budget to bed is about a new TIF up at the airport, because we finally have started to sell those properties. We're going to see significant investment up there. There's an opportunity to capture more revenues.
Yeah.
And TIFs become even more beneficial to the city as the rate of revenue sharing rises. Because it means more revenue staying here as if revenue sharing goes from 3 3/4% to 5%, it's actually an even bigger benefit for the city to put properties in a TIF district, because it means less impact on our revenue sharing from the state. And so, this shows the importance of TIFs to our budget. And we can be even more creative with the way we use them. And we should always be looking to maximize our revenues. And also we just have to be careful, because not everything we borrow money for is eligible to be paid for with TIF dollars.
Right.
Certain things are, but not everything is. Obviously we're going to try as hard as possible to make the justification to use TIF dollars for those things. And Steve, do you
like the
have
concourse in a few years?
And this is a macro look.
Steve, do you have a breakdown of the proposed bond? How much it is? How much? What exactly? I know most of the money is allocated for road improvements, right?
Yeah, Aaron, I think we did a 90-10 split in projecting that.
Yes, we did a 90-10 split.
So 10% for non-road related acquisitions. That we think is going to be mostly departmental equipment and vehicles.
But to be clear, this is the only hope we have of catching up on our road and sidewalk maintenance is bonding. And so the only hope we have without significantly raising taxes is through bonds. So this is an important, and I think everybody wants to see us get caught up on the infrastructure. And this is an important way to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And we've been saying that since we started this, that the main point of this is at one point our budget had $250,000 in it for road maintenance. $250,000 isn't doing anything for us. But what is it, what is the debt? What is the loan payment on $5 million?
About 330 a year in the beginning, and it goes down after that.
So roughly, we're already putting 250 into our roads for an additional $75,000-$80,000, which we can use TIF money for. We're doing that infrastructure now. We're not waiting. We're not trying to build up reserves. We're able to do that infrastructure right now, fix the things that we're deficient on, and continue to do this in the future. Like I said, and Claude and I have had this conversation because he always says that this budget's like mine for the next 5 or 6 years. In 5 years, if this comes crashing, he's going to come looking at me. But this puts us there. And if we continue, we've also discussed having, I know we have our emergency fund. We're going to start doing hopefully here at some point, a stabilization fund so that there aren't peaks and ebbs and flows for our residents, that we can keep our taxes stable for them. You want businesses to come in, you want people to invest, give them consistency, and they'll come.
Yeah. And one of the things that you've emphasized with me is to look ahead and project out as best we can what we think is really going to happen. And that's what we've done here.
And we've been conservative doing it.
Yeah. And one of the alternatives that you have here, when you look at this chart that's up on the screen right now, is that these are all based on $5 million blocks of bonding. If you reduce that to $3 million, you lower the whole scale of this series of stacks. That, to the extent that what Mike is suggesting about putting money away that you're not spending on putting TIF money away so that you can cover costs beyond 2034, it makes that more possible than going with the $5 million bonds. So that's a discussion that has to occur as well.
I would also point out there is a TIF district up at the Trafton Road that is not generating significant income at this point. But now that the improvements are done out there, hopefully we'll see some development out that way.
Right.
That will generate some money in that TIF district. And all of that money is going back to us. And there is no CEA on that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And we might not be done as well. There might be other TIFs that just materialize and we can add to this revenue stream.
I agree, because the more money we capture, the less, for a couple of things. It gives us some autonomy in independence. We don't have all the numbers from the state yet we've still proposed a fantastic budget. We weren't waiting for their numbers. We were ahead of the game. Which is not something, I mean, we've waited till the end of June into July because we weren't sure what those numbers were going to be. We've eliminated some of that. We've eliminated some of that guesswork. So in future budgets, it will be a lot easier for us going forward. It'll be a lot easier for the residents. They'll sort of be able to project out. And as long as we're having strategic increases when we need them, so that we're not doing it all at one big time like has happened in the past, that's consistent. We need consistency. We need to stabilize what we're doing, but there are projects that have to be done. The roads are not even a question. There's nobody sitting on this council that doesn't think we need better roads and better sidewalks all around the city. And we're starting this year. It's not something that we've had the opportunity to do, but we've looked at the way that we're spending money. And as a group, we have found better ways and more creative ways to use the revenue that comes into the city so that we are not burdening the citizens who live there.
Do we still need the charts?
I'm good with the chart. Anybody else? Claude, I see you perching up.
No, I'm good with the charts at this point. I'm gonna have to print them up and look at them with my magnifying glass before I can ask any really intelligent questions.
Okay. There, this is a PDF that I was showing you that is in the shared space for the council under the budget heading.
Okay. Anybody else got questions for Aaron? All right, Aaron, thanks again. Aaron, you have anything you want to say?
Are we talking about finance?
No,
No? Okay.
no, Aaron was my backup so he could nod when I was saying these things.
Thanks,
And I don't
Aaron.
know what kind of camera you're using, Aaron, but that thing's got some pretty high def.
Aaron, you did a fantastic job at nodding tonight.
All right. Who's next, Steve?
That's it.
Don't we have Randy?
Oh, yeah, I forgot about Randy. Where is he?
I'll bring him in.
Thank you. You saved the night, Sarah.
Hey, Randy. Tell us how you really feel about Steve forgetting you. How are you doing today?
Great.
I'm gonna be honest with you. I'm loving watching those colorful parachutes.
I think they're all crazy jumping out of a perfectly good airplane, but that's
Rick. I'll go with you. I'll take you, dude.
No, I'm
It's
good. I'm good. There's no way.
Oh,
They have
so,
me this close to doing it. They're this close.
come on, Randy. Let's do it. We'll do it for some sort of like benefit or charity. Come on.
Let's do it together, Jay.
I got you. I'm with you.
Okay.
All right. There we go. We're gonna talk to Vacation Land, but we're gonna figure this out. Some sort of organization or charity in the city is gonna need that.
Yeah.
do it.
Well, we're doing a big car show on June 5th at the airport. Cruising for a Cure with New Dimensions Federal Credit Union.
Yep.
And we will have a jumping event that day as well. So.
Speaking of which, are you going to have movies again this year now that COVID is coming to, well, not going to an end, but at least that the restrictions are opening up? Or you're going to have more community events around the airport?
That's a great question. I'd love to have us get back into doing that.
So do I. I love the community events. And Mike, you've gone to some of those, haven't you? Yeah.
Yes, I went to all of them. They were fantastic. It's a good
Yeah.
time. Well done.
We keep pushing the sense of community, Randy, and I like that you keep doing that up there too. So, Randy, tell us what's different in your budget.
Not a lot. For the most part, the budget's pretty flat. There was one line item under our safety and training that we saw a slight increase on, pretty minor. And that's for training for our wildlife safety stuff that we need to do. That's really the only major increase other than a small amount in payroll, which includes the standard raises to pay our employees. One of the things that I proposed to Steve was really that I need another person. My team is very small. We're stretched thin. We're running both an FBO, which is a fixed-based operation, as well as the airfield. And I do that with myself, one full-time employee, and then 2 people who work 24 hours a week a piece, and 1 person who works 8 hours a week. So a total of 56 hours. So I'm very thinly staffed. There's a lot of things we're not getting to bridge the gap until the revenue from the solar's coming in. I would like to propose that we add a 24-hour per week position to kind of help us out in getting some of the things that we're not getting to done.
So, Randy, why do you have multiple 24-hour positions in an 8-hour position instead of like one 40-hour position and then maybe an additional 24?
I would love to have full-time employees. What basically we're restricted by is the benefits and under the Affordable Cares Act, we were restricted to the amount of hours we can work people without offering them benefits. And that's where that all comes down into play. And that's why we have 24-hour positions, because if I added another 8 hours into that, it exceeded the amount of hours per month over a 3-month period of time, following the CARES Act rules and laws. And we just can't swing the added cost of benefits in the existing budget.
Yeah, but we also can't afford to not be doing the things that we're supposed to be doing either.
I agree.
I mean,
what's the happy?
Yeah, it just seems like there's again, every department's sort of stretched thin, and if we're going to do the things that are important to keep our city moving forward in the right direction, at some time or another, we're gonna have to bite that bullet to figure out how to make that work for us.
Let me tell you that pulling this information out of Randy has been very difficult. He's so conservative, almost to a flaw, that I agree with what you're saying, Jay, and Randy and I have had these conversations already. He had the open door on the budget in the beginning. I told him, just tell me what you need. But he's, I think he's conditioned to be overly frugal.
We have asked every department to rip the Band-Aid off. I mean, knowing what your wish list is, you may not be able to get it, but it gives us something to look, a sort of plan of action, something that we might be able to do something about. But if people aren't letting us know, and we don't want you to get to a point where that's an issue. I mean, a very different city this year than it has been in previous years. I mean, we can see that all around town. So I'm hopeful that whatever your reservation is, that you overcome it so that we can give you the tools that you need to do your job in that facility as well as you can. I mean, that airport's going to make us money. I mean, we sell fuel, we do different things. People land, they pay to land, take off. We make some money. If not having a position or not being able to fully staff that the way it should be. I mean, I know that I've called that airport sometimes and not been able to, nobody's answered the phone. So I'm assuming if you're not answering the phone, if I don't answer my phone, I'm losing money. So I would assume that it would be the same at the airport.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's hard to keep up with fueling aircraft, keeping track of the operations that are going on, maintaining our wildlife stuff, and all the airfield maintenance, mowing and the plowing. It isn't possible for us to keep anybody inside the way we're staffed right now.
Yeah, and like I said, that phone hasn't rang. And when I talk to people who do fly these planes, that becomes their biggest barrier to wanting to do stuff with Waterville, is the fact that they just can't get anybody on the phone. Again, not your fault. We're not putting the blame on your feet. I just want to make sure that people understand that these are realities that are happening within our city. We are bottlenecked and we're not growing because we keep trying to trim a little bit here and trim a little bit there, and we're just hurting ourselves in the long run. Councilor Frankie.
Well, if I might suggest, Randy and Steve, that this has been my solution for almost every budget issue, is to do a halfway measure. You could possibly, it looks to me like you got 56 hours now, that's all part-time. So if you expanded that to 2 full-time positions, that would only be an extra 24 hours. So how about getting with Bobby Joe and seeing what the benefits and the cost would be of making that kind of expansion, how you would do your scheduling if you had 2 full-time people instead of a bunch of part-time. And then look at maybe we could look at possibly funding that starting in January. That way it wouldn't crush the airport budget right off the bat, but might still be able to address some of your needs.
There are intricacies to getting that done, but I think that we should cost it out.
Can we figure out what the intricacies are to move our budget year to January for Claude?
I'll motion to move it to July next year.
That wouldn't help. That wouldn't help, Jay.
I know.
Just push everything back to April.
Yep.
And we move it back. In fact, that's what the federal government has done. That's why the federal fiscal year starts in September.
Oh, nice.
They just kept pushing it back and pushing it back and pushing it back.
I want to just mention that over the past 10 years, and Councillor Thomas can attest to this, he's seen this firsthand over his tenure with the council. The airport budget was here and our revenue budget, was here. And over time, we've tried to do, bring our revenue in. And as the revenues come in, we've increased our expenditures, paid employees better, added positions that we had, increasing our maintenance line items. So over that time, 10 years, we've strategically increased that. And we're at that kind of point now where with all the different things that are happening, we've got projects that are ongoing. I can't staff, the way I need to anymore. What has historically worked for us, as Jay, as you pointed out, you call, you don't always get an answer. With the solar projects coming to fruition, we should be starting the one on the Webb Road, mid-July. The next one, we're going to be starting in the fall. Once those are in production, we're going to see the revenue for the leases coming into the airport for that. And that's where I was saying, if we added this 24-hour position now, in the next budget, we'll have those revenues where we could continue that trend that we've been at without costing the taxpayers more. I like to have the end user of the airport paying for the majority of the expense.
I appreciate that, Randy. But it sounds like you have a council that is not trying to jump the shark, but give you that faith that we believe that that's what's going to happen for you. So being able to find and get you that position, even if it starts in January, as Claude is saying, we're listening. We get that you're going to get to that revenue at some point, but we can't, in good conscience, as a city, continuously sort of hold ourselves too grounded to not be able to do those. You can't just keep dragging a ball and chain. If there's an immediate need that that filling it will immediately increase the productivity of what's happening at the airport, then that is something that seriously needs to be looked at, and we'll figure that the council will figure that tax portion at some point. I mean, there are some revenues in there. We've got to be able to do some stuff. Eric?
Well, this is where the discussion about a new TIF district up at the airport to help offset these costs would come into play. And pardon my French, but the airport's not going anywhere, and we can't half-ass run an airport. And we were doing this before. I mean, one of the things we did last time I was on the council, we bought a bunch of equipment for the airport, including de-icing equipment. I mean, here's an airport where half of the year operates, where it was stopping people from coming into the airport because they might get stuck there, and that's the kind of thing that's happened over the years. We're committed to this airport. We have to make a commitment to running it the right way, to making sure the staff is there. I mean, we make our money on fueling up jets. And every time we miss out on an opportunity to fuel up a jet, we're missing out on, revenue that could support the airport. So we need to make sure that we have the people available for them when they come in. The facility is greatly improved over where it was 10 years ago, thanks to Randy's hard work. And so, we need to, like all of our other departments, we need to take a hard look at our staffing up there and get it to where it needs to be, and make sure that anytime somebody wants to come into that airport, there's somebody there who can support them and get them fueled up and get them on their way. So, So yes, I'm certainly open to having that conversation about what is the staff we need up there and what's the best way to get us there. And then I have one question for Randy. You know, Randy, last year when we did the bond, there was a new snow removal equipment for the airport, and there was some talk about potentially getting a federal reimbursement for that. I was just wondering where we stand with that.
If we get reimbursed for it, we're probably looking at a minimum of 3 years before we would see that. I am not optimistic, but I'll find out a little bit more later this summer when we meet with the FAA to discuss future funding for the airport. We have other priorities that are eating up funds. So it's really hard to say this early on, but it would be a minimum of 3 years.
All right. So Randy, I hope you take this opportunity to go back down to City Hall and go to Steve's office and start figuring some of this out, because this council seems like they're behind you. None of us know what it's like to run an airport. You do. The rest of us will figure out the other pieces for you. But I always say that we put people in the position where they're strongest. That's where you're strongest. That's where you have the most value to us. And as Eric has said, and I have said, sometimes we have to listen to department heads. But like Steve has said, sometimes department heads have to speak up. We don't want to pull teeth. We want to support and make sure that as long as it makes sense for us financially and it helps the resident in the future, it's win-win. I mean, those aren't hard decisions to make.
You've heard me say,
I need 2 people.
you've heard me say this before, that the airport is one of the key facets of our economic development effort in the future. And because of that, Randy does a great job operating the airport. But my criticism earlier, Andy, was meant to be informational, not to be targeting you. He takes it very seriously to run it like a business. But the constraint to that is that the revenue has to cover the costs. And at this point, we're looking into a future where the city fathers and mothers are going to have to make investments in the airport, as if, just adding capital investment to it to move it forward. And that has to happen, I think, faster than the revenue stream is going to allow it to happen. But the revenue stream will catch up.
Yeah, and again, it just becomes one of those things where, yes, at the airport, I'm just using an easy number. You may make $100,000 and it may cost us $150,000 to run it. So you're not making that money. But the economic impact it has on the city overall outweighs that balance by a ton. I mean, what that airport does for this city and the amount of money that comes in generated by people who land in that airport, it warrants you having the help that you need. Again, everything else, we got skydiving down there. We're getting leases for that. It's important that we always spend time in our infrastructure. You're running the business. You're only seeing the airport side of it. Luckily, you have a city that can see the rest of it.
I appreciate your support.
Anybody else got questions for Randy? Randy, how many gallons of fuel we sell last year?
I don't have those numbers right offhand because we're still midway through the year. But on average, we're around 40,000 or so gallons of Jet A, 50,000. And we're on par, actually, even with the COVID constraints that really hampered air travel. The UPS contractor that we now have at the airport buys fuel from us every day, and that has made up the difference. So we're on par for an average year, where I was worried we were not going to see that.
Can we send Eric up there to show some leg? Maybe FedEx will come too.
We could try. Yeah.
Just saying.
I mean, the more people that come in there to use that airport for services, the better off we are.
Jay, you just gave a fabulous speech on making money at the airport. I don't want Eric up there driving business away. I'm just saying.
Flags are pretty white, Jay. Pretty white.
Oh, it'd be a beacon for the runway. Go ahead, Claude.
I just would like to thank you, Randy, for helping with the COVID vaccinations that happened a couple of weeks ago. That was a really nice operation between your folks, the police and fire, and the FEMA people. That was an excellent bit of coordination. Everybody thanks you. And while I'm making the pitch, everybody, please get vaccinated. It's free.
Everybody should listen to Claude. Well, most days. Anybody else got anything else for anything, or somebody going to let us adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Good night.
All right.